Hello everybody, I'm Barry Rice. I'm the Environmental Health and Safety Director for Signal Restoration Services and PureClean. Would you like to better understand the topic of asbestos? Would it help if you could figure out bad information is still being passed around about asbestos? Or maybe you would like to be able to better manage asbestos on your next job. If you answered yes to any of those questions, then this video is for you. In fact, this is the first of a series of short videos that break down the asbestos topic into more manageable chunks. Well, that was probably a bad choice of words. How about I make the asbestos topic less overwhelming and provide some clear direction? Does that sound better? Alright, before we start, I want to fill you in on my unique perspective. I spent almost 20 years in the restoration industry, but a little known fact is that I was hired into the industry to help a company that was fined $3 million by the EPA for an asbestos violation and had to hire an EHS manager in Florida. That manager was me, and we worked for 5 years to meet the EPA requirements, and we still stayed in business. That gave me a tremendous education in asbestos that I still use to this day. So, armed with that information, I'm going to cover in this video where asbestos comes from, its history, and the health concerns with asbestos. Let's get started. Most of you have heard of asbestos, but do you really know what it is and where it comes from? A chunk of asbestos looks like this. It looks like a piece of rock, right? But notice the exposed white fibers inside it. In fact, asbestos occurs naturally in rock in areas of the United States and in other countries. The rock is pulled out of the earth from open pit mines that look like this. Now, let's look even further back in time and talk about the history of asbestos. Did you know asbestos dates back at least 5,000 years? Ancient Greeks used asbestos for many different purposes. One example was a lamp wick because the flame never burned it up. If you've ever read about asbestos or seen old advertisements, it was known as the miracle fiber because it is fireproof, it's resistant to chemicals, and it's very hard to break apart. These properties were also the reason it was added to building materials to make them more durable and resist wear and tear. It also didn't hurt that it was cheap to mine and produce asbestos. As the demand for this fiber increased, the mining increased as well. Here's another fact that I find interesting. At one point in time, the United States had quite a bit of active asbestos mines spread across our mountain regions. The red dots on this map show historical asbestos mine locations in the U.S. In fact, the last active mine was in California and it operated until 2002. However, unfortunately now know that this didn't end well. In the early 1900s, negative health effects began to appear from exposure to mining and processing asbestos. It was discovered that when asbestos fibers are released into the air we breathe, it can result in scarring of the lungs and other diseases. This is because asbestos fibers are so small that they cannot be filtered out by our respiratory system and wind up embedded in our lungs. To give you an idea of the size of the fibers, here is a picture of a penny. Notice white rice grains on the left, human hairs on the bottom right, and then tiny chunks, little tiny white chunks of asbestos fibers on the top right. The asbestos chunks are so small you can hardly see them, but yet they contain upwards of 20,000 asbestos fibers. To complicate matters further, asbestos diseases are not immediately apparent. They usually take 10 to 30 years to develop. These diseases include lung scarring that can show up on X-ray images such as this. The scarring limits your ability to breathe. Lung cancer can be another result. And then finally, one of the nastiest asbestos diseases is mesothelioma, which is cancer of the chest lining. You've probably seen the TV ads on this disease. So, let me wrap up this first asbestos video. In summary, we learned that asbestos is a naturally occurring fiber mined out of rock. It has been used for thousands of years to make products stronger, heat resistant, and more durable. And asbestos fibers can be breathed deep into your lungs and create diseases or cancer decades later. I hope that gives you a better background understanding of asbestos, how its use came about, and what we eventually learned about its hazards. I always like to make sure we have those pieces in place before moving on to the next parts of the asbestos puzzle. For the next videos, I'll show you how asbestos can impact restoration work and how we have to manage it. Thanks for your attention. Have a great day.